Hello. It's cold out here. I should have done this earlier, but it was cold earlier today and the wind was blowing too, so it probably was even worse then. So I have noticed that my memory is not what it used to be. I used to have a really great memory. I used to be one of the people who could keep everything straight, remember which bills are due when, what's on the calendar month, for months from now. Now I can't remember what day it is, if I've eaten breakfast. I can't remember some things longer than 10 seconds before I have to think really hard about it to recover whatever it was I was thinking about. Today, I heard someone mention that there wasn't any mail because it was Veterans Day. And I knew it was Veterans Day. And later I told Robert I had to leave early to pick up Sarah from work because I needed to go to town and go to the post office and the bank first. So about 30 minutes later, I said goodbye. I got in the car, and at the driveway, so our mailbox is not at our house. It's down at the corner of the road. So if I was going to the mailbox, I would turn left. If I was going to town, I would turn right. So I got to the driveway and I thought, should I go get the mail now or when I come back after picking up Sarah? And then I remembered hearing the conversation. I thought, oh yeah, there isn't any mail today. So I turned right to go to town, to go to the post office and the bank. So a little bit farther down the road, my brain said, hello, if there isn't any mail in the mailbox, the post office won't be open either, and neither will the bank. So I backed up and came back to the house. And actually, I came in the house and Robert was like, what are you doing here? And I said, well, the post office and the bank are closed. And he was like, well, yeah, I knew that. He just let me go out and figure it out for myself. But my mind simply stopped functioning. Has that happened to you? Have you lost your mind? This is something that I've noticed, not just those little things, but I've never heard anybody talking about missing time or having that issue in grief before. But I have been noticing it. And my brain still thinks that it is August, even though all the things that happen this time of year from August to November have already happened. But for whatever reason, my brain still thinks it's August. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I found a website called Refuge in Grief that talked about this, so I'm not alone. It said that because we don't talk about the reality of grief in our culture, that lots of grieving people think that they're crazy. There's not a resource or a checklist available that says these are the things that are normal. They have stages of grief that they I've seen in a lot of different places, but I've also seen a lot of people say they're really, everyone is different. Everyone does things differently, and it's really not a model. It's just kind of things that might happen to different people at completely different times than someone else. But it said that many grieving people simply suffer alone in the weirdness of grief, wondering if they've lost their minds on top of everything else. They said when they talk to people, one of the things that brings the most relief is letting them know that they're normal. They're not crazy. You feel crazy because it's a crazy, strange experience. Grief, especially early grief, is not a normal time. There isn't a normal. Everything is disoriented because everything has changed. They said that memory loss, confusion, inability to concentrate or focus, that these things are all normal inside of grief. That they said they tend to be temporary, but they last longer than you would think. It actually didn't say how long, so I don't know. They said some people, it's a few years before their cognitive capacity comes back to any recognizable form. That's a long time. And it said there's losses in that too. So some of the losses are temporary. Some of them mean your mind is just different moving forward than it was, which makes sense because everything is different. Everything has to be framed differently than it has for me for 18 years. And so the thing to remember is that physiologically, your body has experienced a trauma, and your brain is working hard to make sense of something that can't ever make sense. So all those mental circuits that used to fire clearly are trying their best to relate to a completely different, changing world. Your mind is working so hard, there's very little brain power left over to track more than a paragraph in a book, or remember that your car keys are not on the hook but in the freezer, or it's hard to think in an orderly, concise fashion when you're reeling from loss. And I kept saying, well, it's like your brain has so much grief that it doesn't have room for the other things, which kind of fits with what they said, except they said it more technical. But while I can't magically fix my mind, I do know that I'm not going crazy. My mind is doing the best that it can to keep reality as best that it can, is whatever reality happens to be now. So if you know people who have been through a trauma, be patient and need to make lots of lists, set reminders, whatever I need to do to function. So how about you? Have you felt like you've lost your mind? Has something changed the way that your mind works? Everybody has moments of forgetfulness from time to time, especially when life gets busy. And this can be, completely normal in any circumstance. Having a poor memory is really frustrating. And I found some tactics. I don't know if the tactics I found will work for memory loss from grief, but some of the things on the list are some of the things that were helpful in some of the other things we've talked about. So they can't hurt to try, for sure. So if you'd like those 14 ways that I found to help improve your memory naturally, shoot me a message and maybe I'll remember to send it to you. Seriously, if there is anything I said I would do for you, or you're waiting on an answer to something, please let me know, because I seriously probably don't remember. You will not offend me by reminding me to do something or asking me something again. So if you would like those 14 ways, you can remind me by sending me a message, and I will see you again tomorrow.